Garland left wing, free ball, perfect! Garland front of the lane, lob to Mobley, pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul!
Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. We are coming to you live from Rocket Mortgage FieldHouse on the 30th anniversary of the FieldHouse. I could not be more excited to be back at my second home, really, in Cleveland, Ohio, and I could not be more excited to be joined by my co-host, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. You know, it's nice to hang out with the broski, stop at Harry Buffalo, get some food before we, get into the festivities. You know, LeBron's in town. It's kind of 30th anniversary. Just kind of felt like the perfect time for us to come back into town and enjoy some Cavaliers basketball in person.
It really is, and we're going to be joined a little later by Chris Kaiser, Chief Marketing Officer for the Cleveland Cavaliers, to talk about the 30th anniversary and some of the cool things going on here. But we got to start with this matchup against the Los Angeles Lakers. I've never seen the Lakers in person, and I could not be more excited to have this opportunity to watch LeBron James once again and see how the Cavs match up in what is really a matchup between two of the hottest teams in the NBA to start the season.
Yeah, man, it's going to be really cool. Having LeBron back in town is always special. As a Cavs fan, obviously, the guy won us our first and only title in franchise history, and is pretty pretty woven into the history of this team, and it's special to get to watch him. And as he kind of gets near the end of his career, I was thinking about it just yesterday about how, this might be the last time I ever see him play in person. So it's really special to kind of see him come. It always kind of feels like a bit of a referendum on kind of where the franchise is. When the team, when he first left to go to Miami and the team was in rough shape. When he'd come back, it almost felt like oh man, are we going to be able to get up back to these heights, back to these levels? So and it always kind of felt more bitter than sweet, I would say, when LeBron would be back in town early on. But now that the team is in such a good place, I kind of go back to it kind of feels more full circle. It kind of moves back onto the sweetness side of the spectrum there, where it's like, hey, you're doing your thing, but look at us. Look at what a great team we've put together, what a great culture we've put together. And to that end, it just feels, I don't know, a little bit more special.
It definitely feels special. I'm going to disagree with you a little bit, because when I was thinking about this matchup before I saw the hot start that both of these teams got out to, I was really thinking of this almost like a football rivalry game, where it doesn't matter what the records are, you're always going to get an A-plus effort from LeBron James.
Absolutely.
And that is always going to be a test. So I think from a Cleveland Cavaliers perspective, with them having such a great start to the season and the Lakers also having a great start, it's not just the potential of this matchup and what LeBron's going to do. This might be one of the better teams in the Western Conference and one of the better teams in the league overall. And coming off such a big win at Madison Square Garden.
Which we got to talk about that, brother.
We absolutely have to talk about that. But coming off of that, having another test with the Lakers, and then, not to look too far ahead, but another test against the Orlando Magic, who have looked phenomenal to start this season. I just think that this is the perfect opportunity for the Cavs to continue to try to implement what has worked so well for them and continue to solidify their identity moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, you look at those first three games, and they are a test in a way. They're how serious and how ready are we to be as good of a team as we thought they were going to be kind of test. But this week is kind of it's an escalation, to be sure. It might be literally the opposite end of the difficulty spectrum in terms of where these teams stack up in the league right now. And if maybe the first week was about how high is the floor, I feel like this week is about how high is the ceiling.
Yeah, and you never want to put too much weight on these early season matchups,
but we will.
Yeah, of course, because it's what we have to talk about, and I'm an excitable boy. I'm going to get excited anytime that there's basketball games in front of me. But I do think that it's interesting because when you do make changes, right, and it's not significant changes in terms of the roster, but it's a different approach. You're giving more responsibility to someone like Evan Mobley, who has taken a leap over the offseason. You're re-implementing Darius Garland into the mix because he's healthy and able to contribute at a level that we kind of expect from Darius. When you have all of those things and it goes so well to start the season, there's the confirmation bias, and I think it even helps solidify that, from a player's perspective, you're probably thinking, you know, these changes are working. This is grooving. Like we're able to overcome a lot. You know, the win over the Knicks wasn't straightforward. There were things that went wrong in that matchup, but they showed resiliency. They bounced back. They adjusted. It wasn't one player in particular just doing everything either. Even though Darius was dominant in the fourth quarter, it was a full team effort, and I think a full team effort is what's going to be required in these upcoming matchups against the Lakers, Magic, and you know, looking ahead to the Bucks. So I'm really interested to see how they respond to this test, how they respond if they are tested within games, and if we continue to see kind of those adjustments within these individual matchups.
Yeah, I really liked what you kind of said about, you know, about that kind of belief that you have to build in over time. Because ultimately, like, you know, you don't want to hit speed bumps the second you freaking start the season. That really can damage the kind of that motivation, that kind of belief. But Justin, we gotta push pause because we've got a very special guest joining us here.
We do have a very special guest.
Guys.
Hello. How's it going, sir?
Now welcoming Chris Kaiser, Chief Marketing Officer for the Cavs, to help kind of let us preview not only this game, but what we're
better have your
info.
Analysis hat ready, sir.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
we're going nitty gritty. We're going X's and O's. No, we want to talk about, you know, this being the 30th anniversary of the FieldHouse. You know, I think my first time coming to the arena was 10 years ago. Just coming down a pilgrimage as a lifelong Cavs fan to come down. Funny enough, my first game I saw here was LeBron's last game as a member of Miami in Cleveland. But I want to ask you to start things off. What's your favorite memory in this building? What's the one thing that stands out to you?
I would say my favorite memory was probably last year, actually, Kelsey Brothers
Wow.
night.
That was
as the chief marketing officer.
Yeah.
It was like kind of the perfect storm. You know, we had, you know, Jason retired the day before. Travis is dating, you know, Taylor Swift. We didn't know any of that stuff was going to happen when we planned the night.
Oh.
And then we obviously have the 22-point comeback against the Celtics.
Now, you didn't
so.
engineer that relationship.
Well, no, I did, but I think
That's
they,
unbelievable.
You know, when you have a good
I was
promotion,
giving you
just
credit for that.
energizes Dean Wade. You know, he was the one that was apparently energized by it, but.
And did you script out the 22-point win? Did you tell them, you know, it'll be a little more dramatic?
Hey, we suggest things, you know, and they don't always come true. That one came true. So.
Yeah, the script was leaked on that. Well, what's your favorite memory? I got to ask.
You know, I gotta say, I mean, I've got a couple. Obviously, the first time you ever get to come to a Cavs game, I think is special for everyone. I remember, you know, I was 16 or 17, even though I grew up just in Columbus. You know, my parents weren't like big sports fans, so you know, when you don't get to go to a lot of games in that kind of environment. So I remember I had earned my money at the Dairy Queen, and I bought tickets with my older brother who's with us today, and we went, and I remember we got up to the front early, and Samardo Samuel signed my jersey, and I just and Anderson Varejao signed, and all the Cavs guys kind of rolled through, and it was like this very like, you know, kind of surreal experience getting to like see this team that I'd been obsessing over for years in the flesh for the first time. But I got to say, those first two home playoff games last year, when it was just so loud you couldn't hear the refs whistle blowing, that's got to be my favorite. How about you?
For me, probably the All-Star game. The halftime ceremony, you know, the NBA Top 75, that was just so cool to see all of those players, and probably never going to see a spectacle like that again. You know, even since that event, unfortunately, we have had some of those players pass away, but I've had nothing but great memories in this building, and I got to ask, you know, walking around every time I come to Cleveland, I love being downtown. I love the walkability, all the restaurants and stuff like that. How important do you think it is for the Cavs to have this facility downtown, and then
in the heart of things,
and then the practice facility that's coming up in the near future as well?
Yeah. So our ownership group and us as an organization, we just believe in a very strong urban core, walkability. You think about the experience when you come to downtown Cleveland. So we have the Peak Performance Center that we just announced kind of the groundbreaking on last week. We had a big barge go by with a banner on it, so you know it's a big deal.
Yeah.
But we also have we brought the Charge downtown from Canton, and we have them playing at Public Hall.
That's right.
So
court looks great, by the way.
It looks amazing. Actually, like the pictures of it are like I got a little teary-eyed. I think when we saw it.
It's theatrical.
Very theatrical. But I think that like we try to lead with our actions around it, and we obviously consider ourselves a fabric of this downtown community, as well as the Guardians here right next door, and it just drives a lot of economic activity and foot traffic downtown.
specifically with the practice facility, what is the organization most excited about? Obviously it's having the players so darn close, having that community tie-in. What are you maybe most excited about with that new practice facility coming?
Well, I think it's going to be for the community too. There's going to be that aspect of it where athletes, high school athletes, people in the local area can come and actually be their best selves. But I think Kobe always talks about he could use the term "built for more." He likes the idea of having these athletes. And all of our players, be the best they can possibly be, and maximize their potential. So that's what we're looking forward to, and especially having it down here proximity-wise, I think it's just going to make everyone, both on the business and basketball side, feel a lot more cohesive as well.
Yeah, it's going to make that riverfront. I feel like that the entire city is just going to start looking different, year after year after year. Like when you have that kind of core piece built, there's a little bit of if you build it, they will come.
Yep.
That kind of is at play as well.
100%. Creating that momentum down there. I think it's just someone just had to make a first move, and I feel like it's all gonna kind of come together, and the dominoes are gonna fall.
Hey, it's always best when you can make the first move, set the tone, and I love that. Another thing I really love about what the Cavs have done, especially since this rebrand, is looking at all the different city edition jerseys, how it highlights something within downtown, whether it's the Rock Hall, the Metro Parks, the theater district, and that.
Yeah, I don't feel like you see that with the other organizations as much. Sometimes they feel like they're kind of happening in isolation. It's really cool to see how much even the branding of the team is tied with the city.
Yeah, and we have the good thing about Cleveland is we have a lot of good stories to tell. I think that's the beauty of it. Last year, that was amazing. It's the second largest theater district outside of New York. That's something I honestly didn't know that. As someone before I moved here, and it's a huge part of the city, and it allowed us to have a national platform to use our brand and use our global awareness to kind of tell that story.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic, and
also the jerseys always look very nice.
The jerseys do look very nice,
which is a nice bonus.
and I always like that it almost gives me a conversation point. When I'm talking with my wife, I'm like, oh yeah, it's a tie-in to this, and even the Metro Parks jersey. I remember she wasn't familiar with that, and one of the times we came in after that was, okay, let's go there for a hike, let's walk around, let's really kind of experience what's been highlighted. I can't wait to see this year's.
The lead he's burying is that it just helps him justify the purchase.
Yep, there it is. Yep, for all of us, right?
Yeah, it's not just a jersey; it's a jersey with a story. I think it's fantastic. I gotta ask, because there is a game tonight. We are on game night. Do you have a prediction? What are you feeling tonight? Do you have a script that you're able to share with
I know
us?
For sure the place is going to be packed. It's going to be sold out, and the fans are going to be crazy. And we're going to have. Ahmad, he's ready to go. I saw him earlier. He's fired up to get the crowd into it. I think. Yeah, I'm like an eternal optimist. I think everyone knows here. I think we're going to go 82-0. So.
If you look at the numbers, right now we're on pace.
That's from historical data from the first 4 games. We will be 82-0. I think we win. I think we win by 8 to 10 points.
I like it.
Is that okay to say? I don't even know.
It is okay to say.
It's encouraged. One could argue on this podcast.
As a Cavs optimist, you are on the right podcast.
I love it.
That is typically the way I approach things. The other thing I noticed is you guys launched Cavs Rewards and announced that. Can you tell both us and the viewers about kind of what people can expect with that?
Yeah, so our digital team did a great job of leading the charge on that. So it's a program where you connect your credit card to it, and you can earn points. Through just different purchases you make, either whether it's at our retail locations, concessions locations, so activities people would normally take as a Cavs fan. So it's giving
stuff you're doing anyway.
Yeah. So and it's a model that you've seen in every other industry, really. Think about I don't want to say a non-partner, a coffee place
you guys
every morning.
You guys know
rewards programs.
Rewards.
But it allows, we're basically rewarding fans for the behavior that we want them to take, which is engage with the brand and engage at games, but really rewarding them for stuff they're already doing on a day-to-day basis. So.
And again, just giving Justin more excuses to burn.
Yes, yeah.
Money,
you're earning points. Yeah. You've got a great story to tell.
I want to make so many points. If I get this jersey.
Honestly, it's. I've got a weakness. And
Trish is our most loyal soldier.
She really is. She really is. But thank you so much for taking the time and coming to talk to us, and really appreciate it. And now you can go influence some other people to go spend some money and earn rewards.
Heck yeah, appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Chris.
Thank
you so much. Really appreciate it. Man, I'm even just that little bit of a preview's got me excited.
I feel like we don't normally get teased in such a way,
No, but
I feel like they were really opening the door for us on that one.
But we deserve it. Let's
we
be honest.
do. We do deserve it.
But I'm so excited for this matchup because, like we were saying before, I do think that this is a really interesting test for the Cavs. And especially when you look at how they've approached the season to this point, so much of it is advantage basketball. Finding those opportunities, finding what the defense is giving you, and recognizing now that we have the dynamic backcourt, now that we have, Evan Mobley that can initiate offense, we can attack a defense in a lot of different ways. And I'm interested to see how that manifests against a Lakers team that does have a strong interior presence.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was doing some stat hunting, and obviously this team's one of the best offenses in the league through 4 games. And I was kind of looking at touches and how much more democratized they are. Evan Mobley is currently leading the team in touches per game at 58, when last year it was Darius and Donovan around like 75 touches a game.
Yeah.
We're seeing a much more democratized offense at the top, and we're seeing everyone kind of getting touches. One thing I found interesting, though, was not a ton of passes. This was a team that was 5th in the league in passes per game last year. They're down to 27th, and I was thinking, what could that be? What's the root? Because it's not necessarily correlative with a good or a bad offense. It's just an interesting data point, and I kind of threw that out onto Twitter, and someone kind of mentioned that they felt like it was a result of the team not letting perfect be the enemy of good on offense. I think this is a team that maybe overpassed a little in years past, or just kept swinging 1 or 2 more times to try to get the perfect shot. I feel like part of this kind of aggressive mentality, this higher pace mentality, is Kenny's like, hey, if you got something, I trust you to take it and make it.
Yeah, and I think it all comes down to tempo to me. Like, I really do think that's one of the biggest factors of, you are looking for those good shots early in the clock, whereas, like you said, sometimes I think they did let perfect be the enemy of good, right? Where they would make those extra passes and they'd really try to hunt for that perfect look. And sometimes you're not going to get that, especially against the best teams in the league. You're not always going to get, the initial shot that you're hunting for. And often, if you do pass up a good look early in the shot clock, odds are you're not going to get a better shot later, because if the defense is already a little bit in rotation, you've generated that advantage, and you pass up that look, usually the defense is going to have the opportunity to reset, and you're passing to someone that, unless they get that quick shot and kind of that nice extra pass, you're really not able to recapture that advantage. So I do think the decisiveness really helps.
Yeah, Nate Duncan on his podcast, they always call them record scratches.
Right.
You have an advantage, you kick it out to the corner, and the guy freezes for a second. Defense resets, and now you've lost. You're starting from ground zero, except you have half the time to get a playoff.
Yeah.
So I think that decisiveness is obviously super important, and I think part of that just comes from, brother, our point guard.
Yeah.
Our point guard is playing some legitimate basketball. Darius drops 15 points in the 4th quarter to win the game against the Knicks. What did you see from that game?
Just the confidence. I really liked it, and we highlighted it in the podcast after the 2 games over the weekend, where it's a bit of a feeling out process, right? When you have so many players playing within the rotation, and you do have those kind of extended shifts, sitting on the bench to catch your breath. Finding that rhythm and finding your spots to attack when you re-enter the game, I think is so important. And in the first couple games, I felt like Darius in the second quarter was a little more hesitant, feeling out kind of where his spots in the offense were, and then kind of recapture that in the second half. Even though the scoring burst didn't come until later in the 3rd and 4th quarter from Darius, I felt like he was assertive throughout the night, and he kind of just recognized, okay, this is what the defense is giving me. They're laying off me. I'm going to kill them every single time they drop. They are going to be forced to make a decision on me because I'm going to make quicker decisions. And that was really something that we always wanted to see from Darius. I think back to Game 2 against the Knicks when the Cavs had the blowout win here. He was punishing them every time they went into drop. He was recognizing what the defense was giving him and making the defense second guess. And, I think it's going to be really important looking ahead to tonight's game, where there is going to be a very strong interior defensive presence with Anthony Davis there, with LeBron James. It's going to be tough to score inside. I think the assertiveness of the guards is going to be so important.
Yeah, one thing about the way he attacked the drop I think is important is, yes, there's always, when a team's playing that drop and the big man's going, under the free throw line on some of these pick and rolls, sometimes there is a degree of which you have to kind of take what they give, but there is a way to do that while you're still asserting control over the game.
Right.
Darius wasn't pulling, 17-foot mid-rangers. He was getting that extra step, getting them backpedaling, and using that to make a nice interior pass once they had to commit to him, draw contact and get his float game kind of in engaged. And I think that's really the difference between, maybe Darius last year, where kind of felt like the terms could be dictated to him a lot. It felt like he had complete control over the game.
Yeah, and I think you're really seeing the impact of the strength and just his overall health returning, because he is able to move around the court.
He's faster.
So much easier, and it's under control, right? Like, he might have still been able to get to that spot last year, after the jaw injury, but he wasn't in as much control. It took more effort to get there.
Yeah, less smoked layups, things like that, where you go up, your feet were going faster than your body.
And I'm really happy that you brought up his float game, because I think that is one of the biggest beneficiaries of his return to form. Is he's getting past that initial defender, right? Like, the Knicks put Josh Hart on him, they put Mikal Bridges. He wasn't even feeling them defensively, right? He was getting by them, and he's under control as he's getting into the lane or as he's coming down, from the wing. And it's the return of kind of what we love to see with Darius that made them so potent when you talk about that connection with the bigs, where he is able to either get the float or the lob. And it's all
and
about...
you don't know which one he's going to throw.
Right, and when he's past that initial defender, that means the help defender has to commit, because all of a sudden you're playing 5-on-4. That help defender has to make a decision of, am I going to come up and contest the floater and sag off Jared Allen in the dunker spot, or Evan Mobley cutting baseline? And I just feel like with the increased pace, with the movement that the Cavs have, with the structure they have within the offense, having someone that can create chaos like Darius Garland and make the right reads in those spots is just going to, that's one of those things that can take this offense to the next level.
Yeah, there's a reason we've always talked about him as the kind of the ceiling raiser for this team on offense. Is when he's cooking, they feel the most unfair, they feel the most challenging to kind of corral. And I think a lot of credit goes to the coaching staff, where he's catching the ball with advantage. I don't think Darius' strength will ever be running a straight high pick and roll against a set defense. Like, yes, he can do that, but that should be option B, C, D.
Yeah.
I think option A is, he's catching the ball off a pin down, or he is pushing the ball up court in transition. And like, when he's playing against a defender that's already backpedaling or already trying to close distance to get to him, that's where his change of direction and ball handling skills start to really shine. It was a kind of a loser's errand for a guy like Mikal Bridges to try to catch up and then also stop when he stopped, start when he starts. Like, there was a lot of just lunging from the Knicks defenders at him.
Right.
And like that, once you're lunging at Darius, that's kind of when it's game over.
Yeah, and I think the other area that you see kind of the return to form is the return of his off-ball game. Like, the way that he's running off.
So many nice little relocations too, just savvy stuff, man.
He just really understands spacing well, and I just feel like there aren't a lot of off-ball opportunities for the Cavs, whether it's Darius, whether it's Donovan, anybody really. There aren't a lot of off-ball advantages being created that are missed. Like, I feel like they understand where those movements are going to occur, and there's so many talented playmakers on this team, or at least connectors that can make another play, that they're not missing those opportunities. If George Niang has kind of shifted down into the corner for a nice set shot, he's getting found. When Darius is running off his screens and kind of involved in a weak side action, if he is generating an advantage there, the ball is getting to him. And
dude, that's where like shot diet and like just box score scouting kind of like can get you into trouble. Because like, I think if you were to say, like, Carter, you didn't get to watch the first 4 games of the season, and don't you dare make fun of me for not watching the Cavaliers, listeners, because I do. But if you were to say, Carter, you couldn't watch the first 4 games, how's the season going? The first thing I might point at is like, how many threes are we shooting?
Yeah.
Oh, we're shooting less? Are we not generating good looks? And like, it just goes to show you, like, the health of those looks are, it's not just to open shooters, it's to open shooters who are set, who are in their preferred spots, and they're getting hit in the pocket, because the whole offense is kind of functioning at a level that I think that kind of helps explain why their offensive rating is second in the league right now, despite about a league average 3-point volume.
Yeah, and I think the quality of the looks that they're generating from the 3-point line have also had an impact on the quality of looks that they're having inside. I don't want to say they're consistently an outside-inside team, but I do feel like at the start of a lot of these games, they are hunting a lot of 3-point shots. That's what the defense is giving them. And teams are recognizing, oh, they got 12 three-pointers up in the first quarter. Darius is getting free. We need to focus on how we're defending these pick and roll actions, how we're defending these weak side screens, and all of a sudden that opens up opportunities inside. And I think what differentiates the Cavs from some of these other teams that run a tempo offense, that are looking to push in transition and take those three-point attempts, I think one of the biggest differences is they are able to punish you on the inside. They are able to capitalize on the looks that are being generated and the defensive scramble. And I think that's why you're seeing someone like Jarrett Allen, who, as you mentioned on the last podcast, and it still remained true, he has more blocked shots this season as a defender than missed shots as an offensive player. And I just feel like the bigs are feasting as a result of the perimeter-orientated approach.
Yeah, I feel like Jarrett's kind of, as usual, has kind of become the unsung hero of the season so far. It's always going to be kind of his nature. He's not, a chest beater kind of player. But 69 points on 31 field goal attempts so far is bananas. Yep. 6 missed field goals through 4 games. He is just getting clean, easy looks, and he is using kind of his skill, his ability to read the floor to make maximum impact. And then I remember when we were talking through preseason, okay, Evan's going to get the ball more, Darius is going to get the ball more, and where are the attempts going to come? Where's the volume going to come? Kenny wants to play 10, 11 guys.
Yep.
Are guys going to be able to get their counting stats? Well, one way to get your counting stats is to never ever miss when you get to shoot. And Jarrett is doing that right now.
Yeah, it's certainly helpful when you don't miss. And you talk about unsung heroes, and maybe it's really kind of epitomizing Jarrett being an unsung hero that I'm already pivoting off of him.
Absolutely.
But
Thank you.
I do want to give a lot of credit to Donovan Mitchell, because I think so much of this working is a reflection of the level of buy-in that Donovan Mitchell has had. I think you saw it in the game against the Knicks with the way, he trusted Darius to close out.
Yeah, there's one play where he's literally everyone get out of the way. I got to go run a Spain pick and roll for Jarrett. I'm going to go screen Cat. Cat, of course, flopped and drew a foul on Jarrett, but we're not going to talk about that right here. But, I think that level of Darius is cooking. We have a scab to pick at right now. I'm gonna help us pick at it, even if it means I'm doing the dirty work, like setting a screen on an opposing center.
Yeah, and the thing that continues to impress me with Donovan Mitchell is, when you trade for a star in their prime, you kind of assume you are getting who he's been to this point. And I think the thing we've seen with him throughout his time in Cleveland is an evolution of his game, an evolution of an understanding of what's the most important things to ultimately win a championship. When he came into Cleveland, we know that he's someone that can dominate matchups, that can be a dominant scorer. But, there was questions about efficiency and, is he going to be too ball dominant? Well, you've seen his growth as a passer. It's gone to a completely different level as a playmaker. You've seen the buy-in on the defensive end of the court. And I think now you're seeing an understanding of, if we're going to win a championship, if we're going to contend for a championship and bring another title to Cleveland, I'm going to need Darius Garland. I'm going to need Evan Mobley. I'm going to need Jarrett Allen. I'm going to need all of these guys to play an important role and to occasionally be the person that steps up, because defenses are going to give you something. Offenses in the NBA right now are too sophisticated, and there's just too much talent on the court to take everything away. And when
you better not take it away yourself.
Right, you better not take it away yourself, and you have to recognize those advantages you're creating. And when you have 4 guys, with this core that the Cavs have, that are all able to, on any given night, dominate their matchup and take advantage of that, it may only be for a quarter that someone like Darius or Jarrett dominates, and that might be all you need to open up opportunities for everybody else. But keeping everyone involved, keeping them in position to capitalize on those opportunities, I feel it's so essential for the Cavs to bridge the gap between themselves and a team like the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, and boy, do the Celtics look nigh unbeatable right now. So you have to lean into your strengths, and I think watching a team like the Celtics right now, who are so sure of who they are, so dominant in their matchups to start the season. The only team I think that's been better than the Cavs by the numbers thus far this season. And you look at there's all these talks about style and homogeneity in the league and things like that. And you look at a team like the Celtics, you go, we're probably not going to be able to turn ourselves into a better version of what they do.
Yeah.
So we'd better be the best version of what we can be and see how that messes with what they do.
Right.
You know, because like I think if you want the Cavaliers to come out and with 4 wings and try to get up 63s a game, like you're probably not going to beat them at their game. That's their game. And I think like the fact that the team seems to understand that, a guy like Donovan seems to understand, is like, okay, we have to figure out exactly what's going to make us the most flexible, the best we can be. You know, I remember in the preseason media availability, Kenny's talking about how, in the playoffs, you gotta have different levers to pull.
Yep.
And we're just not going to learn anything about this team with Donovan isoing. Even if we win 50 games again, if Donovan scores 32 points a game, I don't think we'll be any better served going into the postseason than we were at the beginning of the year. Whereas right now, they're trying stuff. They're doing things. They're testing themselves in different ways. They're testing different lineups. They're testing the full depth of their rotation, which I'd love to talk about.
Yeah.
And I do think we're just learning a lot about this team already in 1 week of 1.5 weeks of play so far.
And I think one of the most important things that they're doing is they're establishing an identity. Because I think if you're going to be a championship level team, you need to know who you are as a team, and you have to impose your will onto the game. You have to be the one that dictates how the game's going to feel offensively. You need to be the team that dictates how the game feels defensively. I think back, it's fitting with LeBron in town, but I think back to that 2016 championship team, and so much of the analysis before that series was, is the Cavs style going to work? They should probably slow the games down and muddy things up because the Warriors are just so good offensively. You don't want to get into a shootout with them. But the Cavs, that wasn't their identity. Like, they could muddy it up, and they had the year before because of the injuries in 2015. But it ended up being the 4 highest paced games of that series were all the Cavs wins, because they recognized not only is Golden State a potent offense, but they were so good in the half court defensively. So, pushing and creating those advantages and playing their style, that was one of the things that bridged the gaps and ultimately allowed them to win in 2016. And I feel like the same thing is true of this Cavs team. If they're going to win, they're going to force teams to change who they have on the court because it's clicking with the two bigs. We're getting beaten up inside, and we're not able to attack them in the ways that we want.
I was literally gloat watching Knicks Film School's reaction podcast, just enjoying some sad boy Knicks fan content. And there were people in the comments going, "We should have played Towns at the 4 with what's the
Jericho Sims?
No, not Hukvardi.
Oh yeah.
At the 5, we needed to match their bigs, and seeing that kind of, whether that's strategically what they should have done, I definitely could quibble with. But the fact that you're kind of inspiring that, God, what are we going to do about this? Mm-hmm. That's the kind of fear you want to inspire in a team.
And I think that's also one of the benefits of continuity, right? You look at it, you talk about you don't want to be, a version of the Boston Celtics. I feel like that's a little bit the identity crisis that the Knicks are going through right now, right? Okay, we want to have 5 guys out there that can shoot at all times, but our identity prior to that was this grit and grind team that's going to get, the offensive rebounds. We're really going to pressure you at the rim. And they may figure it out. I still think the Knicks are going to end up being one of the top 3 teams, honestly. I'll pick them for 3rd right now because they're going to be behind us. But I do
Magic are coming, brother.
Okay, how about a home court team? Yeah, the Magic are a little scary right now. But I feel like, that feeling out process and trying to find that identity, the Cavs don't have that issue. They know who they are as a team. And even in, the changes that we've seen offensively with this team, it still feels like it's building on a little bit of the past, right? We have seen the split cuts before. We have seen Evan Mobley as a grab-and-go big man bringing the ball up full court. But now there's really an emphasis of we need to make this our identity. We need to make it so that, Evan, don't even think about it. If you get the defensive rebound,
you have to go.
You have to be the one bringing it up. And in those possessions, the guards aren't, because there's that certainty with what Evan's going to do, there's no Darius and Donovan coming back to, are you going to give up the ball or whatnot?
They just get to fill the lanes.
Fill the lanes in transition, sprint to the corner. Let's see if we have an early look. And if teams start to scramble, we're going to kill you on the inside. And I think that decisiveness is what's going to take the Cavs to the next level, because we have seen, you look at 22-23, they were one of the better offenses in the league. This starting lineup was clicking offensively and on both ends of the court. But I think just that uncertainty and not knowing themselves well enough and sometimes just being their own worst enemy, I feel like sometimes that got in the way. Whereas now, Evan's more decisive. Darius is more decisive. And I feel like sometimes a decisive possession that maybe isn't the optimal decision in that spot, but it's executed decisively, I feel like that's better than, not a better possession, but with indecision, if that makes sense.
Yeah, dude, it's it's funny. One of my favorite pieces of advice I ever got professionally when I was first producing broadcasts in my day job. We had something go wrong, and I took like 15 seconds to figure out what the right call was. I remember my coordinating producer at the time said, "Dude, sometimes it's better to make a wrong decision quick than to take too long to make the right one."
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of the same journey the Cavs are on right now, where they have to just go, learn from their mistakes. And by the way, this hasn't been perfect. I think we've seen a significant difference in what an Evan grab and go looks like against the Detroit Pistons and the against the Toronto Raptors than it has going up against Alex Sarr or OG Anunoby.
Or tonight, Anthony Davis,
yes,
right?
Like the calculus is going to be different. The challenge is going to be different in terms of especially these rangier kind of wing defenders pressing his handle. It's not always going to be perfect, but I think that diversity of offense just kind of yields net benefits and gives him the reps so that when you're trying to do this in the playoffs, he's like, okay, I've seen an OG Anunoby picking me up at half court as I go, and I know kind of what lessons to pull. And by the way, again, not perfect. He got hung up at half court, and we nearly got a half court violation to end the game, playing exactly that way. So. They're getting a lot of actionable data, but what's really cool about it is they're winning through it right now. And when you're winning through trying new things, I just think that's what stops a guy from Donovan Mitchell from going, never mind. Let me just take over for a minute. Let me go to what's comfortable. We'll deal with cool new stuff when things are easier.
Yeah, and as much as I want, a stress-free evening tonight, I am going to be interested to see if they're tested in that way, because I thought Donovan showed a lot of confidence in the process in that game against the Knicks. I think it would have been so easy for him to just say, all right, I'm going to start getting these shots up. I'm going to try to take over, and that's something that
he was very good in the second half.
He was really good in the second half, and I feel like, that opened up opportunities for Darius. That opened up opportunities for Evan, right? I'm just going to be really interested to see how they approach this game. And, the approach isn't just interesting from a player perspective. I think it's also interesting from a coaching perspective, because one of the things we wondered after the 3-0 start was we're seeing so many guys playing, 18, 19 minutes here. We're going so deep in the rotation. What's it going to look like in a challenging game against the Knicks? And I think my theory ended up being correct.
Correct. You nailed it, buddy.
Which the rotation looked the same in terms of who came in and when, but those subs for the rotation guys were just a little earlier, right? I think Sam Merrill came out 2 minutes earlier than he normally would. Darius came in at the 7:30 mark, or at least went to the bench at that point rather than the 6-minute mark.
Jerome and Okoro only got one shift as opposed to their normal 2 to 3.
Right.
He kind of yoinked it down where he needed to, and yeah.
And the thing, I'm glad you mentioned that, because the thing I'm really curious about is, I thought Ty had, his first kind of rougher shift where he was a little shoot first when he came in against the Knicks. The shots didn't necessarily fall. I think it's almost obvious that, when guys 9 and 10 struggle, they only get the one shift. But I'm going to be interested to see if someone like George struggles, if someone, a little higher up in the rotation struggles in a contested game against the Knicks, but Ty Jerome plays well, are we going to see Ty kind of move up in the rotation in the second half?
Because we saw Dean. Dean had a rough game on offense. He ended up making it up for it on the defensive end and playing well, but he still got his opportunities for the most part. He didn't close on offense down the stretch. It was Karras. So, there are these little tweaks, but, is anyone going to get yoinked out of a shift, I guess is the real question.
Yeah, and I just think it's us learning about this team. It's learning about this coaching staff, how they're going to approach the regular season. And, the beautiful thing is the Knicks still played what you would expect. Those starters were playing 37, 38 minutes. I think one even got up to 39. Whereas the Cavs, Evan Mobley was the only one really that...
Over 35. He had 36. Everyone was 33, 31, 30.
It's just so great that you are able to go that deep in your rotation at a time of year where you still are figuring things out. This isn't the final version of the Cavs. We hope to see and expect to see, a better version of them as the season progresses. But to be able to work in that many players, to be able to still execute your rotation and come away with a comeback victory at Madison Square Garden, I think that's the type of win that really boosts your confidence moving forward.
Dude, it's an important win. Obviously, some could argue there are no such thing as important October wins, and I think that is a defensible opinion.
I fundamentally disagree, by the way. I think it's all important.
No, I think wins are wins are wins, and you look at the fact that the Knicks were on a 2-day rest. The Cavs were on their 3rd game in 4 nights.
Yeah.
And only have had 2 days off since the season started. Those are the kind of rest advantage games where you go, we'll see how we do.
Yep.
And when you steal those, it just makes the ones where you do have that advantage where you go, hey, we're definitely gonna. The team's rested, they got this, makes those feel even better because hey, we stole one that we probably shouldn't have stolen based on how the calendar lined up.
Yeah, and to clarify my point, I don't think you can ever take a definitive lesson from early season games or honestly any regular season game.
They all count towards the 82 though.
But I do think that there are lessons that you can learn from it. And I think, you from those games, you can learn from the strengths and weaknesses and how you respond to that, I think is the most important thing. And, tonight is one of those opportunities where the Cavs having the chance to test themselves against the Lakers. Maybe it doesn't go well, and we're going to learn how they respond to that scenario against the Magic. Or maybe, we're going to continue to learn how they handle success and how they build upon those successes.
Well, they're probably just never going to lose again. I mean, that's the real crux of what's going on here, Justin. But yeah, I mean, there is a little bit of I think you're right to say that there is a curiosity now that they've started so well of is the shoe going to drop and how does it drop? We know they're not going to go 82-0.
Yeah.
Well,
you know that.
Yeah, I know that. You might not. But we learn a lot about a team when they're under duress. If they lose this one and it's ugly and the offense isn't cooking the way you'd like it to cook, do they come out and play sloppy against Orlando, or do they go back to that sharp kind of initiation style that's gotten them the 2nd best offensive rating in the league so far? I think that's what I'm most excited to learn.
Yeah, I'm very excited, and I'm excited to see how Evan Mobley matches up in this game in particular. I just think Anthony Davis is on a tear this year. He's an early season MVP candidate. He's such a dominant force in the defensive end when he's locked in, and he appears to be very, very locked in. So I'm going to be interested to see how that changes the approach. Maybe instead of Evan Mobley doing as many drives, we see some high post action, right? You see some of that double drive, try to pull him out of the paint and see if the guards can attack a weaker defensive backcourt in D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, man. I think this is a weird matchup game because the Lakers have some real levers to pull. They've got legitimate size to match up with the Cavs. They've got dynamic guards, but in a lot of ways, they kind of are a perfect matchup. You can throw Dean Wade on a LeBron and say, hey, Evan and Jared, do your best on the back line, brothers, and keep the guards relatively clean. Or do you just put Dean on a guy like Austin Reeves, who's been a killer for the Lakers, and try to even things out? I'm not quite sure what they're going to do. Dean has been guarding 1 through 5 so far this season.
Yeah.
So I'll be fascinated to see where they take things.
I will be too. Do you want to give us a prediction before we head out of here?
Oh, single game predictions. I don't know. LeBron is just always going to give his best.
Yeah.
He's always going to give his best. The vibes will always be a little odd. Big Brother's always. It always feels like Big Brother's in town when the two teams play. But, screw it. I think Cavs are going to win this one.
I think the Cavs are going to win, too. 5-point victory. I'm going with a 5-point victory. I think it's going to be a little bit close. And, Carter, I think we got to congratulate ourselves. We managed to do a Cavs-Lakers preview without talking Bronny James.
Yeah,
I'm excited to see Bronny, but I feel like every preview show has gone for at least a half hour.
Listen, brother, let me just say, if I can tag with this, I think it's kind of nice. I think it's cool. I think it's cool. Kid grew up here. He's going to be playing here with his dad.
Yep.
We're literally seeing something that's never happened in the history of the league, and I'm not one of these cynical dudes. I think this is fun.
I'm not either. I think it's fun. I just think it's not worthy of analysis.
No, probably not.
It is something that I am excited to see tonight.
It is a head nod and a clap.
Absolutely. Well, big thanks to everyone that tuned in. We do really appreciate you guys tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you guys like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast, you can support us by leaving a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. And if you want to be part of our Discord chat, send a screenshot of that review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.